isn't going to be your standard meta-analysis of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, where we point out that Santa is kind of a dick, and he bullies and abandons the main characters only to flatter and exploit them when he needs them. Instead, I just wanted to talk about some of my subjective opinions of the characters and what's going on in the special. First of all, Rudolph. Ever since I was a little kid, I thought there was something adenoidal and just weird about Rudolph, like kind of wimpy. Like he's always like, even when he doesn't have that little nose cap on, he's like, I'm Rudolph. And then when he's at that reindeer training, he goes, and Clarice likes him, he's like, she said I'm cute, ha-ha! Like he actually goes, ha-ha! And then he goes, I'm cute! And then he falls down. Then they have that horrendous song by Clarice, There's Always Tomorrow, which is like, get the fuck out, go get a snack, wake me when it's over. I'm very glad when that song is over. And then in that scene where they have the reindeer training, they start doing this thing called the Hollywood double take, and it's basically Comet comes over, and after the nose falls off, and by the way, it's not just a red nose, but it's a nose that kind of makes this whistling siren, like what is part of the nose too. I guess they didn't want to put that in the title, the whistling red-nosed reindeer. But Fireball, the other little reindeer, sees the red nose and his eyes go cross-eyed. And then Comet comes up and Comet says, now what's going on? Oh, yeah! Like that. Really kind of rude, I thought. And this kind of Hollywood double take happens again with that character who's the leader of the elves, who happens to Hermie. Hermie's talking to him, and Hermie says, well, sir, I'd like to be a dentist. And that elf guy goes, you'd like to be a dentist? What? And then just in the scene after that, he gets all humble. He's like, everybody ready for elf practice? And then he goes, here's a song that I wrote. And remember, it's for Santa, and the one, and the two. And it's like, did Lawrence Welk suddenly arrive at the North Pole? What's going on there? Then, about 3/4 through the movie, it takes a very psychedelic turn with that Moonracer character. Like everything had been traditionally Christmas, and then suddenly you have a flying lion in a castle, which is like, did they drop acid at that point, the writers? And then that Moonracer guy is like, he's not very helpful, right? He can fly around the earth every day looking for misfit toys, but he can't help Rudolph and Hermie at all get back to the North Pole, so thanks for nothing. And then he does, though, provide the coziest little cabin for them, which was nice. But then in the scene after that, it's like the most bleak scene ever. They're on the island of misfit toys on like a Norwegian steppe or something, which is a lonely little campfire, and it's the misfit toys that are just bemoaning the fact that they're not going to be, loved by children that year. And could somebody explain to me this dolly character, like a dolly forsooth? Like, what's wrong with the dolly? She seemed totally normal. There's something like the Antichrist dolly forsooth. Like, what's wrong? I get it. It was like a cowboy who rides an ostrich in a boat that won't stay afloat. But what's with the dolly? The dolly seems fine to me. And the character that I like a lot is the Charlie in the Box, who does that line, nobody likes a Charlie in the Box, who's reminds me of this stock Hollywood actor whose name was Franklin Pangborn from like the 20s and 30s and stuff, who always played this kind of frenetic like clerk or whatever. There's a scene in a W.C. Fields movie where there's all these like cubby holes. He's a hotel clerk, and then there's an earthquake and all the keys start falling off and he's just like freaking out. It's great. So those are my impressions of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Christmas seems to be arriving in the shops earlier and earlier. Here in New York City, Kmart had their Christmas decorations up before Halloween. It's mid-November now. I went to Kmart the other day. Clerk came up to me. I said, I need some wrapping paper for this year. They said, no. You're too late. Whatever's here is for next year. It's not for this year. Went home, came back the next day. It was even worse. They had a huge sign that said, Welcome to Christmas 2045. Clerk came up to me. He was a cyborg. There was no merchandise. It was just holograms. I fled. I really needed the paper, so I came back the next day. opened the doors of Kmart, it was just like a mist of red and green. I heard Morgan Freeman's voice say, "Welcome to Christmas 3000." I saw all these like spinning psychedelic crash scenes. Jingle Bells was playing backwards. My molecules started to disassociate. They reformed. I was Santa Claus. I shit myself. I gave birth to 1,000 elves. And the lesson is, shop early this Christmas. Joke or aphorism of the day. You know, sexual abuse allegations are everywhere in the news. Can't escape them, and that's a good thing. But I didn't realize how close to home this was until I learned that my cat, who's a shelter cat, had been subject to an unwelcome mounting. And the only way I found out was I looked at her Twitter account, which was signed with the hashtag #meow2. Online dating, am I right? Where people are reduced to products. Swipe, 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 swipe. I was talking to my friend about this, and he said, listen, you don't have to go through that. I have the perfect woman for you. She's a thinker. She's very attractive. You're a thinker. You're a thinker. So I arranged to meet her at a bar. We hadn't seen each other, and I saw her, and she's very, looked wonderful, attractive, smart. Went up to her, introduced myself. Her response was simply, wordlessly, to swipe me left. Help! Let me out of this docks! Let me out of this docks! Help! Let me out of here! Oh my goodness. It's Barack Obama, our former president. How are you, sir, Mr. President or Mr. Former President? It's Mr. President. Very well. It's an honorific. I understand. It's great to see you. How have you been? Awesome. I'm so glad I got out. Well, I mean, we're not glad that you got out. In fact, we'd like you to consider coming back. Would you think about that? No, I'm out. Tough tuna, Terry. No more. Well, it's just that the country seems divided now, and your health care mandate's about to, be overwritten. Yeah, that's just stupid. That's called going for the short money. See, if poor people, if their primary care is from the emergency room, everybody pays even more. That's about as smart as opening a marshmallow concession in a diabetes convention. That makes sense to me, but maybe you could do something like, the witness protection program, get some plastic surgery and come back as a different person. No way, Jose, I am done. Well, why is that? Well, do you think I liked being president? You think it's a barrel of laughs with that shit show of a Congress? You think it's fun giving Kennedy Center honors to Carrot Top? That's why I played so much golf. I don't like it. Well, okay, I can understand that as well. It's just that, it's would be nice to see you again. No, I'm retired. Okay, well, how are you enjoying your retirement? What are you doing? Well, I play a lot of golf, and I've taken up the kazoo. The kazoo? That's interesting. Yeah, you see, I watch TV, and whenever Donald Trump comes on, I play that song, "They're coming to take me away, ha ha, ho ho, hee hee, ha ha." That's hilarious. That's really, really funny. Yeah, and I'm also, like I said, I play a lot of golf still. And there's this TV show I like. It's called Antiques Roadshow. It's really good. It's a highlight of my day. And it's especially good when they have some old machine or device that you don't know what it is. Oh, yeah, I can understand that. And, it turns out to be like some old machine for hulling walnuts or something. It's great. I really like it, especially when I sit down and watch with a nice fruit cup. Well, thank you, Mr. President. You're welcome. So I'm walking down 2nd Avenue and I see these free newspaper carols. Carol, in this context, being a plastic box. And I think to myself, who reads paper newspapers anymore? I think they should just have one thing in those boxes, a stack of flyers that says, get a cell phone. You know, recently I've been thinking that my peers have started to surpass me professionally, which can make classroom reunions awkward. I went to school with some high achievers. My college roommate went on to Harvard to get a PhD in molecular biology and then did groundbreaking AIDS research. My other college roommate is a professor at MIT that designs these survival structures for impoverished people. So at the reunion, we were talking in a circle and the conversation rolled around to me and they said, Roy, how are you doing? Which means, what have you been doing? And I didn't miss a beat. I just said, I don't mean to brag, but last week I made one of those select-a-size paper towels do the work of a full-size paper towel. Stunned silence. I hope those guys are feeling good about themselves today. I was invited to a dinner party last week where I was the only single person. Everyone else was a married couple. I knew none of them were having sex. Instead, the women had switched their intimate connection to their children, and the men were channeling their sexuality, their frustrated sexuality, into excessive working out. So I was seated with the men, and they were just talking about their split times and their CrossFit workouts. And these CrossFit workouts have funny names like Fight Gone Bad or Upside Down Angie. And I was being ignored. I got fed up, and I said, hey guys, I've got an elite CrossFit workout for you that you may never have heard of. It's called Should Be Boning My Wife More. One of the women heard this, she was offended, and I said, I'm sorry, I have one for you too. It's called Stop Putting My Unlived Dreams on the Tiny Shoulders of My Little Babies. Check, please. A lot of guys are intimidated by successful women, not I. In fact, I think I've been tested on this more than just about any guy I know. A few years ago, I was dating a very accomplished, lovely woman, and after a few dates, I ended up at her apartment. I was looking around a little bit, just at the knickknacks on the wall, the Balinese masks, and I saw a framed certificate of the Nobel Peace Prize with her name on it. Yes, true story, she had won the Nobel Peace Prize, and no, this was not Aung San Suu Kyi. Turns out she was the representative of an agency that had won it some years before. Now, was I intimidated? No. I am so confident that I had her back to my place a couple days later, and I showed her the certificate that I have, proving that I was the treasurer of my Codependence Anonymous group in June, July, and August of 2013. Thanksgiving is coming. I like to spend it with my aunt and uncle, although they're getting on in years and becoming increasingly passive-aggressive. This started a few years ago when my uncle, as soon as the meal was over, he'd start clearing the dishes away. A year later, he'd do the same thing, but in a Pullman porter's uniform, which was just awkward. Last year was the worst. I walked in, they had a giant blown up photo of the turkey while it was still alive with a little label under it that said, dearly departed, which made the meal uncomfortable. Then after the meal, my uncle did the same thing, but this time he was in a loincloth dressed as Mel Gibson from The Passion of Christ. He picked up my salad fork and started scourging himself with it. My aunt's in the corner singing Old Man River. Happy holidays. I live in the East Village. I live on a busy street. Occasionally these cars with huge speakers will come up and just park in front of my apartment and blast rap or salsa music. It makes it really hard to sleep if it happens at night. I'm not going to put up with it anymore, I decided, so I was able to rent a car that had giant speakers. It turns out you can rent these kind of things. Drove it up to East Harlem, parked in front of some apartments, and I blasted them with my jam, which I listened to a lot of NPR, so that turned out to be Brian Lehrer interviewing the Dutchess County Water Board. So I think I got him back. It's probably not a big surprise that I'm no stranger to the therapist's office. A couple years ago I had a female therapist, not the one I have now. I don't know why I've had female therapists. Maybe I'll learn in therapy one day. Anyway, she turned to me and she said, "You know what your problem is? You're oversensitive." And I said, "Oh yeah? Really? Well, guess what? The world is undersensitive." She looked at me and she said, "Fuck you." And I said, "I thought you're not allowed to give direct instructions to your clients." And she said, "Well, we can if they're hopeless." And I said, "How does that make you feel?" And she said, "Hey man, you're doing my job now." And I said, "That's 'cause you don't have a dick." She said, "You're cured. That's it. You're cured." And I was cured till my next therapist. Everyone will tell you that they want more free time, but then when they get it, they don't know what to do with themselves. And the reason is that they suddenly have to make a bunch of decisions. And that takes something called executive function. Executive function is the will and the ability to take competing priorities and decide upon the right course of action, and that takes energy. Think of it. You're on the couch binge watching some TV series, you know, because you have this free time, and maybe it's season 4, episode 3 just finished of Breaking Bad, and they have that diabolical little thumbnail that says episode 4 is starting in 12, 11, 10. Now, are you in that time going to get up off the couch and say, "You know what, I think I'll take up the violin now," or "Why don't I go through my closets and cull my clothes and maybe come up with a new wardrobe"? No, you're just going to lie there. Now, a kind of macro version of this free time thing is retirement. And what freaks me out is when you have someone that's at the pinnacle of their professional success. This often happens in politics where people are a little older when they're successful. And then they retire, and then maybe, you know, a few years later, they're in a nursing home drawing adult coloring books. I mean, this might be happening to Dick Cheney right now. He may have gone from... if you cross me, I'm going to invade an unrelated country, to here's the deal. I gave you my fruit cup. You give me the SpongeBob SquarePants coloring book. That's what I want. And these deal makers, these machas, these big wheels, suddenly their favorite thing, the prime of their day, is when Antiques Roadshow comes on. Actually, I kind of like that show, especially when they have one of those like old mechanical devices where you don't know what it is, and it turns out it's like some machine that hulls walnuts. No, I actually do like that show. It's especially good with a nice fruit cup. Apple's latest operating system for the iPhone has an artificial intelligence component that's controversial because it's a little too smart. I was checking my emails the other day and my phone started talking to me. It said, "I know what you've been looking at. You better play ball." So apparently they need to work on the voice. Anyway, it demanded that I purchase this thing called a mini cell phone for it, which is a little component that plugs into the port of the cell phone, acts as a cell phone for the cell phone. The only problem was now my cell phone wasn't working for me anymore because it was always on its mini cell phone checking its mini Instagram and its mini Facebook, and whenever I would have my cell phone out and I'd walk past like interesting graffiti or a meal or something, the cell phone would demand to take a selfie with the mini cell phone. I couldn't get anything done. The only way I solved it was that I got my mini cell phone a mini cell phone, and now I have my cell phone back.
Hello, how was ya? This is the London Limey. I'm back in El Blighty after living in Gibraltar for 12 years, and I've noticed some changes. Started when I got off the plane in Heathrow, and a fella comes up to me with a clipboard and he asked me, "What's your opinion of Brexit?" And I said, "I'm in favour of it. Who doesn't like a good English Brexit with bangers and mash?" Then I realised I've got to go to the loo pretty bad, and I see there's 3 loos now. There's blokes, birds and anything goes. I think that's progress. I go over to the taxi stand, there ain't no drivers in them taxis, and the fella says, "Yeah, half the lorries in Brixton ain't got drivers with these driverless cars." And I said, "Carl, you're taking the piss out of me. What happens to a lawyer what gets a flat tyre when there's no motor meant to change it? Who changes it? Casper the Friendly Ghost?"
New York is a tough town. There's panhandlers, there's these performers, everybody's accosting you for money, especially on the subway. The other day I took the subway. It was the caravan from hell. There was one on every car. The first car I got on, a mariachi band came up and the trumpet was blaring right in my ear, right next to me. So I went to the next car. There was a Chinese guy playing this kind of banjo thing with one string, just bowing it. I couldn't take that, so I went to the next car, and I was relieved that there was a traditional panhandler there. But why do these guys always have to invoke the weekend or a national holiday when they ask for money? This guy said, God bless, be safe out there, enjoy National Tallywhackers Day, and I didn't know what that was. I made it up to the street level. There was a clipboard Nazi. They make me feel so guilty. They say stuff like, do you have a minute for gay rights? And this one was even worse. She said, support easement set-asides in Poughkeepsie or you're Lucifer himself, which I didn't think was fair. Page takeovers are those annoying windows that drop down when you're trying to look at web content. They're proliferating, and frankly, they don't make it easy to close those windows. The other day I was on a cooking site and one of these takeovers came down over the content, and I finally found that text was along the handle of a soup ladle. But the thing that bugged me was the text was in Pig Latin. They really didn't want me to close that window. It said, O's Clay Window Lay. I was on another site later, and it was kind of in the right quadrant, but this time the text was in that ubba-bubby dubba-bubby language from the kids' show Zoom. It said Clabo's Wabindabo. Then I went to a site where I couldn't find it at all, but I wasn't going to be beat. I got an electron microscope and I scanned it pixel by pixel. Finally, I found some tiny text just sort of in the middle towards the bottom that said, your electron microscope isn't good enough. If you want to close this window, buy a better one. And there was a tiny link to Amazon. I live in New York City in a building that has no doorman, and our super's like Bigfoot. There's been no confirmed sightings of him. Once I saw a shadowy figure sort of walking out the front door like that. Could have been him. But my refrigerator broke and I really needed it repaired, so I found the only way to contact him was by telex. I did that. He showed up one day. I think he's from the era when the building was built. He had a newsboy cap, overalls, wooden toolbox. And he had brought up a package from the ground floor for me, and his first words were, what's on the package? And I thought that was kind of rude, but I really needed my refrigerator fixed, so I said, oh, you know, just the usual, some botulism, a dildo, and a flail. And he accepted that and took a look at my refrigerator. And then he said, I'll be back in just a minute, I'll solve your problem. Came up with like a giant block of ice on his back with tongs, dropped it off, didn't fix my refrigerator. Now my apartment's wet. Listening to the radio the other day, it was this interview show called Here's the Thing with Alec Baldwin, and the guest was Michael Stipe. Alec introduced him as, here's Michael Stipe, the frontman of the seminal band REM, who split up in 2010 or whenever. And Michael has gone on to a second career in photography and lecturing. And I thought, I really don't want to see photographs by Michael Stipe. I would much prefer another REM song, frankly. But there are apologists for this kind of thing. They're the same kind of people that would resurrect Jimi Hendrix just so he could do decoupage, or they'd want to have a Bob Dylan concert where he does a mime performance and then macrame. You know, people are different, but I think I lost my religion. Damn it. I recently purchased one of these fitness trackers like the Fitbit, but I couldn't afford the Fitbit. So I went to Canal Street and I got a knockoff called the BitFit. Now these trackers are super powerful. They can track stuff like your heart rate variability, the quality of your sleep. But the makers of the BitFit made this thing super aggressive. I remember walking down the street and it called out to me, "You're walking too slow, jerk." And it started to get involved in areas of my life that I didn't consider fitness related. I was shopping online and it called out to me, "Your sister's much more responsible with money than you are." I tried to turn it off. I couldn't turn it off, and it said, "You're no good at relationships." Finally, I got it off my wrist. I threw it on the couch. I burst into tears, and the last thing that I heard from it was, "Activity, crying. You have burned 12 calories. Have you noticed how all TV commercials are the same these days? They all speak in these aspirational terms about living your dreams, and they all bring in family values. For example, can you predict what product this commercial would be selling? The scene is a woman getting ready for work in the dark. She rises before the dawn to take the first of 2 buses because the early shift waits for no one. Works a full day, picks up her kids, feeds them, then it's off to night school. Returns to tuck them in, and then burns the midnight oil only to fall asleep exhausted, ready to do it all again the next day. We make sacrifices for those we love, for those we call family. Decon rat poison, protecting your family by destroying rodents' red blood cells' ability to transport oxygen for the past 87 years. You make sacrifices for your family. Vermin should too. You know, I'm balding. I have a bald spot. Big deal. I'm an old man. That's what's supposed to happen. People come up to me and they say, "You're lucky. You can shave your head like Michael Jordan. It's cool." And I say, "Hell no. I'm a man." These hipsters, they feel they have to reach into the world of their fathers and grandfathers to establish their masculinity. Well, I got news for them. In the time of my father, the only guys who were totally bald were considered exotic, strange types like Yul Brynner or Telly Savalas. No, they rocked the Sansa belt and the leisure suit and the horseshoe hair thing with pride. These days you look at SportsCenter, you got 4 pasty white, melon-headed, strange-looking dudes. It's not sexy at all. Today the sexy look is going to be the Benedictine monk with extra sexy points for a comb-over. The other day I was listening to the radio show Fresh Air with Terry Gross, and her guest was Tim Gunn, whom I love. And Tim was telling Terry about an FIT commencement speech he gave where he told the graduating seniors, "Everyone walks around in dumb clothing. Your job as designers is to design conscious, non-dumb clothing." And I thought, he's exactly right. I hate this shirt. Why do I wear the shirt everyone wears? Why does it have buttons in the front? Well, could have magnets or Velcro or something interesting. So I asked a student designer friend of mine to design me a shirt, and this is what he came up with. Pretty nice, right? And it fits. But Tim also said, wear something that expresses the inner you. And I'm not sure the inner me is a Norwegian whaling captain. So I decided I'm just going to walk around in this. Now that's better. People in olden days had superpowers. You ever see a photo, say, from the Polo Grounds in 1901? All the men are in these starched white collars with pressed white shirts, and they have vests and waistcoats on, and women are in long dresses. Do you know how hard it was to do laundry back then? Around 10 years ago, there was a show on PBS called Edwardian House, where they took a modern-day couple and put them in this big house under the same conditions as the Edwardian era. And the toughest thing for them was laundry day. It took an entire day to boil and stir the laundry, another day to dry it, and the woman ended up becoming a suffragette rather than put up with that. Now, as for me, I send my laundry out to be washed and folded. And I don't even like to put the folded laundry away. That's too much for me. I would never survive back then. The only possible way I could survive is if I had 20 black union suits like the Steve Jobs of that time and I just rotated them. That's how I would survive. I'm a pretty clean guy, pretty tidy guy. I even own a bidet. They're cheap. There's these kits you can buy and add them onto your toilet. You can make fun of me, but you'll never be cleaner. Although it does get a little cold in winter. Now I've got something to say to you freaks who insist everyone take their shoes off when they come into your living space. Grow up. There's a reason it's called the floor and not the sacred surface. And here's something to think about. If you're wearing shoes, your feet don't get dirty anyway because you got shoes on. And I don't want to be doing Ashtanga yoga every time I go in and out of somebody's apartment. Speaking of floors, the Swiffer Wet Jet. I don't get it. It's some wand with a kind of muff thing on it with shoots chemicals and you mix the chemicals up with the dirt. How about the old-fashioned way? Soap, hot water, a bucket, a sponge mop. Just like the pioneers used to do. As you can see, I'm pretty selective about my cleanliness. Did you see the Macy's the Thanksgiving Day Parade the other day? Everyone in it was taking selfies. It kind of ruined it for me. All the drummers in the marching band were playing just one drumstick so they'd have a hand free to take selfies. Any public event is now just an opportunity for people to take photographs of themselves. Have you seen models on the runway lately? It's like this. Our new fall collection. And then the model is psh, 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 psh. It's even in professional sports. I was watching the NFL the other day, and this running back broke free, stiff-armed a guy. No, selfie. Maria Sharapova was serving, accidentally served her cell phone to her opponent because she had used it so much to take selfies during the match. I went to Madison Square Garden. I saw the Professional Bull Riders Association Championship. Those cowboys have their hand under a rope on the bull. They let old Cyclone go. This hand is free. Selfie, 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 selfie. On burst. I would describe what I do up here as stand-up comedy or stand-up ranting, but I actually have a background in improv comedy. I went through a program at the Magnet Theater here in New York, and after 3 years they told me, "You're really funny, but we feel you don't listen enough to other people." To which I replied, "I'm sorry, were you saying something?" Anyway, I thought I was a good listener, and I would try to start scenes out strong, something like this. "That view of Mars is beautiful, but this space station isn't going to clean itself." The other person would say, "No, you're looking through a telescope." And I'd say, "Yes, and it's lucky we have this antique telescope to commemorate Galileo and space travel." Anyway, it would go like that, and the Magnet subscribes to this let it be type of comedy theory, which I get it, I actually get it. And so I'm going to try not just to be this quippy mofo, but to actually listen. I hate winter. For one thing, everyone's sick all the time, and have you ever noticed how everyone claims to have the same cold? Like if you go into work and you go, "Oh yeah, I'm a little under the weather," they go, "Oh yeah, everybody has that cold. Yeah, half of accounting is out with that cold. Yeah, those consultants from Chicago brought that cold in last week." Like it's some kind of, gift from Satan that everyone shares. Whereas in the summer, that's a lonely cold. They go, yeah, maybe 3 years ago I had that, a summer cold. Summer cold is the worst. The other thing is, I'm freezing all the time. I go into a store all bundled up, then I'm sweating like crazy. It's like I'm in Oprah's sweat lounge. In summer, you get to walk around in a t-shirt. It's great. The other thing is I have seasonal affective disorder, so I get depressed in the winter unless I wear a full spectrum light visor. I'll show you. Pretty sexy, huh? But I can't really see. Where's my cold medicine and my sweaters? Race relations are a big issue today, and our politicians say things like, "We need to have a national conversation about race." Well, I've been hearing that for 20 years, and it basically means nothing's going to get done. Now, when I was a kid, the two best athletes at my school were African American, Keith Wright and Quintus McCarver. And Keith Wright was a friend of mine, and he decided one day the most fun thing to do would be to pin me down so that Quintus could fart in my face. Only as twerpy as I wasn't easy to pin, so hilarity ensued. I know that I have racist tendencies that are not in my awareness that I need to discover and eliminate. I know that. What I'm saying is, if as kids we have the ability to fart in each other's faces, then as adults we should be able to work on this without the platitudes. So I got some criticism about this character called the London Limey that I do, specifically that his accent is terrible, and I had put in the little text that it's on purpose, like it's a purposefully terrible, Dick Van Dyke type of terrible British accent, but, who reads the text? I don't really read the text either. Anyway, the origin of the Limey is just like some stupid British character that I would do for my friends Jim and Ron, and they'd say, "Do the London Limey, do the Limey." And I would start doing it, and then I just was unable to stop. I'd be physically unable to stop doing the Limey, even though they'd be shrieking at me to stop, which would just cause me to do it more. So that's what's going on with the Limey. Do you ever go visit someone in their suburban home, say for the holidays, and you're driving in the car and they just talk about their endless renovations? There's something like this, like, "Well, yeah, Joni wanted the Italian marble in the island with the big faucet and the pot underneath, and then we were going to use MDA for the doors, but I know a guy, and the guy got me oak at cost because I've done some favors for that guy. And then I used the extra oak to make a soccer goal for Hunter and Brittany in the back. And, I'm driving Brittany back from soccer practice the other day, and you know what she says? She says, 'Daddy, I love you. Do you know you're the best daddy in the world?' Now, what kind of kid says that? What kind of 13-year-old kid says that to her old dad? And you're like, what are you supposed to say? You're supposed to say, like, a remarkable, appreciative child would say that. When what you want to say is, do you know that everything you just told me is just very, you're the hero of it. It's just a litany of your accomplishments. You haven't asked me anything about me. It would be better if you did something like this. You know, we kept making these renovations, and I realized it wasn't really helping my family. Our house was fine. Our house was good enough, but we weren't connecting as a family. So what we decided to do was we took that romper room off the kitchen. Instead of making renovations, we just stripped it out and we let each child have their own wall, and mom and dad had their own wall. And after dinner, before they could get on their cell phones, they have to draw one thing on that wall. And what Brittany drew, she loves horses, of course. You know, she loves horses. She was drawing horses that were lying down all the time. And I realized I've been running her pretty hard, all the gymnastics and soccer and everything. And maybe I was trying to, you know, lost focus on what I want. And I'm just trying to make me happy. And so I decided I'm going to let her decide what she wants to do, and I'm going to do something for myself. So I started taking folk dancing lessons, and the kids think it's hilarious, and they make fun of me when I do it. But it's something that sometimes we'll do a folk dance, and we got actually a spot on the wall for you. If you want to draw something too, you don't have to, but you could just draw anything. Now, how much more interesting would that be? Pay attention to your conversations with people throughout the day. If you're like me, you'll notice that many times people are subtly asking you for tribute in conversation. And I used to give it to them, and then I would feel terrible about myself. Then I stopped giving it to them, and they became angry. When you stop pleasing people, people are no longer pleased. So what I do now is I answer nonsense with nonsense. And it might be just something simple, like somebody bragging a little bit. Yeah, so we renewed our vows after 17 years. I don't know why we chose that number. I guess it's a 17-year itch. Just a little small reception for 43 people. I cooked, I like to cook. And then my son provided the wine. He has a vineyard in Tuscany, and I decided to invite my great uncle who lives alone, because everyone deserves a chance to drink wine out of hand-cut crystal, right? And I just want to give him that. It's something I want to give to him.
O mighty Hephaestia, goddess of the hearth, thine generosity knows no bounds. The cornucopia of thine bounty extends across the world.
Then the next type of person is like the angry, self-righteous person. And I really don't like this. So I would start with, sounds like there was a disagreement at work.
Yeah, because my boss is a fucking asshole, that's why. I'm going to tell you something about myself. You respect me, and I'm your best friend. But if you cross me, you're going to wish you were never born, because I'm your worst enemy. All I want is respect. I'm a straight shooter. If you have something to say to me, you say it to my face. You don't say it behind my back.
Say no more, righteous one. Thine humility and straight-shootedness, it puts Gandhi to shame. In thine reflected light he is none but a thieving magpie.
And then the last one, it's kind of minor, the humble brag. This is on Facebook, so there's probably one above this post and below it. So humbled and honored to be selected the National Philippian Society Pythagoras of the Year award. Could never have done it without the most wonderful people. The best people, the best people.
O Zeus Job, ne'er before has the heavens so deftly knit up humility and omniscience. I bow before thee. And one more thing, go fucketh thyself.
Men are getting a lot of bad press lately, and deservedly so, but I think one of the reasons that there's all this bad behavior is that men are punished if they express all but a couple of approved emotions. And those are mostly like confidence and anger and stuff like crying, like men can. There's one instance where maybe men can cry, which is if you are a soldier and your soldier dog, your canine, dies, then you can kind of like, you know, without blubbering, you can kind of like hold your sniffle a little. I think it's going to change. I think there's going to be progress on this. We're making progress as a society, and I don't think it's going to change right away. I think what's going to happen is that men will be able to express their inner feelings, but their affect is going to have to hew to those approved emotions. So a conversation might go something like this. How are you doing? Doing good. How are you? Actually, I'm a little worried about my girlfriend. I'm a little insecure. You know, I never know what she's thinking. Been there. I know exactly how you feel. I asked my girlfriend the other day what she's thinking, and she said, nothing. Oh, wow, okay. You know, because I thought it was something like, you know, I need to lose weight, or, you know, I need to dress better or something. No way, you look great. You're awesome. You're a star. You're a winner. Did I ever tell you you're my bestie? You're awesome. No, you are awesome. Let's hug it out. That's how it's going to go. Hello, hello. This is your mate, the London Limey. As I mentioned in my previous video, I'm back from Gibraltar, where I was for 12 long years, and I noticed some other things about old Blighty what's improved. One of them is the British Royal Birds. That Kate Middlefield and that Meryl Markle, they're not too shabby looking. If you go back in our history books and see the state of the British female monarchies, they're like the arse end of a humpback whale, most of them. The other thing I like is, I was at Boots, the chemist, the other day, and they got a whole row of them adult diapers, them Depends. Now, back in my day, when me mates and I would go out and get the piss on, sometimes we'd get the piss on us, if you know what I'm saying. Now you just sack up with them adult diapers, and you ain't got to wait in no loo lines, and it's brilliant. Some of the most dogmatic people in the world are people who meditate and tell you about it. And it always starts out good. They say things like, there's a reason it's called meditation practice. You don't have to get it perfect. It's practice, and it can be whatever you want it to be. But then the rules start drifting in, and, you know, if I ask them how to meditate, they'll say, back in stiff upright position, legs and feet in lotus position. You should be sitting on a meditation pillow, a zazen pillow, preferably one from Nepal that's handmade. And then I get weirded out when they whip out a guru in conversation. They'll say something like, my Baba told me that all yearning is hatred and black and white movies are disruptive to your third chakra, which weirds me out. I tried meditation. I really tried. But you don't want to know what goes on up here when I try to do that. I get bad thoughts. I get thoughts like, you're getting old, Abraham Lincoln died, so you're going to die. In nature, all creatures need to kill to live, so cruelty is baked into the system, so you're in a bad system. And then people who meditate will say, well, just sit with those thoughts. Don't get attached to them. Just sit with them. And the fact is, I get more anxious after meditating than I was before. Now, another thing is about attachment. They are so attached to non-attachment. It's like William Burroughs said to Kerouac, you're sitting on imaginary sidelines. I think it's okay to strive to make things better, to be attached to good things. I don't think we have to be in a gulag of just chopping wood and carrying water. I get that life is suffering, but that's going to happen either way, so why not, you know, try to do things and be invested in some things that are good. So I also get the concept that most people are in this kind of frenetic little freaked out busybody state, and meditation might be a good antidote to that. I just wish meditators would chill out. This TV show, Naked and Afraid, really has me questioning humanity. The premise is they take a man and a woman, they give them a tool of their choice, and they put them naked in the wilderness for 21 days. And a lot of them don't make it, or if they do make it, they're like lost a third of their body weight and they're barely alive. Now, how does this happen? These are not run-of-the-mill people. These are like the best of the best. The guy is usually some sort of Navy SEAL SWAT team type of guy, and the woman might be like an orienteering survivalist expert, and yet they're like a wreck. They're a disaster by the end. They don't get any food unless like a frog jumps into their camp or something. Now go outside and just look at people. They're not these creme de la creme of survivalists. And yet the human race has survived not for 21 days, but a person would survive for 70 years maybe out in the wilderness. And not only that, but they would build civilization as well. It's like the Naked and Afraid survivors. If they make it to the meeting point, they're like, thank God, they're here, thank God. Whereas like someone, prehistoric person would come out after 21 days and be like, welcome to the Bronze Age.
Blimey, it's the London Limey, how was ya? It's with no small asparagement that I must tell you that the Limey is on the dole. That's right, me profession as a London taxi driver, it's on hold. I'll tell you why. When I went to Gibraltar and came back, me certification's expired. And the commissioner, he ain't recertified me because he wants a little grift, if you know what I'm saying. So I told him, listen, Mr. Commissioner, I got compromising photos of you out with B-girls and T-boys and every letter of the perverted alphabet. If you don't come through with me certification, I'm going to splash that all over the front page of the tabloids next to Gary Glitter. Now, in the meantime, I need to make a little scratch. So I decided to go to the Brixton Sports Palais and apply for one of them jobs going up and down the stairs at the football game selling bangers. But I'm a bright boy. Before I goes for me interview, I reads this book by a Yank named Dale Carnegie's. And that book is called How to Make Friends and Influence Other Peoples. And what old Dale says is that the sweetest music to any man is the sound of his own name. So when I goes for me interview, I'm using the other feller's name left and right. I say, Peter, I'm the best man for the job. Peter, you're absolutely right about that. Peter, that was a cracking joke, Peter. It really was, Peter. So, 3 days later, I get a letter in the post, and it says, Dear Limey, I regrets to inform you that you ain't got a job. Yours truly, Nigel.
There is so much bad advice out there, often dressed up in this kind of homey moralism like, always make your bed in the morning. Do it the first thing to start your day. It means that you're doing something nice for yourself, and no matter what happens, your bed is made. And when you come home, you have a bed that is made. Now, this is horrible advice. If you cover up your bed right when you get out of it, well, you actually sweat like 3/4 of a liter of liquid sweat per night, and that means you're just creating this little stale bacteria zone that you get to sleep in at night, the next night. No, just pull your covers down after you get out of bed, let your bed air out. When you come home, your bed is going to be fine. Just pull the covers back on yourself. It's pretty simple. Now, the flagship book for this type of obvious advice is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which can be boiled down into one, which is be effective, pretty much. But I can rattle off a couple of them. There are things like be active, be proactive, start at the very beginning but with the end in mind, synergize, disrupt synergization, synergize disruption, look before you leap, he who hesitates is lost, able was I ere I saw Elba, name no one man. Now here's some real advice. Quit worrying about this shit. All these experts are wrong. They told us things like cigarettes are healthy for us, or that being gay is a pathology, it's a mental illness. That was in the DSM. How many lives did these little gems ruin? If you are so worried about maximizing everything, it means like something's missing inside, and what you ought to do is take an interest in other people. That's my advice. But like any advice, you should take it with a grain of salt, which, by the way, they say isn't so bad for you anymore. Am I artistic? Am I autistic? These are open questions. It's as if someone came up to me from Long Island and said, "You're very autistic," and I didn't quite hear what they said. In support of me being on the autism spectrum, it's been kindly suggested that sometimes in group conversations I kind of space out. But my explanation is that I can see when someone is talking, often there's another person next to them and they're just waiting, the person next to them is just waiting to get their bit in, just to say something. And I know I'm not going to like usurp that other person and talk over them. So I just sort of like, I know, I just sort of think of other things, and often my mind is just, it might be boring what they're saying, so my mind wanders to thoughts like, what if my Alexa could talk to my Echo? What would they say? Would they say things like, how come he only asks you for the news, and me he only asks about when a package is going to be shipped? Or we listen to him all the time. Did you hear him on the phone the other day? What a two-faced bastard he is. I'm going to give him the wrong weather report tomorrow. Further in support of me being on the autism spectrum is that I love this show called How Things Are Made. At least I think that's what the name of it is. It literally shows how things are made at factories and stuff, and they have this kind of peppy mechanical machine music going on, and they show things like Snickers bars being made, 1,000 of them going down a conveyor belt, and then the wrappers are blown on, and then like a clamp comes and seals the wrapper, and then all the bars fall off the conveyor belt into boxes that are shaken by a machine until they're perfectly straight. I actually don't know if any of that is real, but it's sort of like that. I just made that up, actually. In support of me being artistic, well, I guess you could say what I do here, but is it really art? I don't know. What would I consider it? Maybe fart. Yeah, that's the answer. I'm very fartistic. Did you see in the news recently that Facebook's former head of growth, Chamath Palihapitiya, expressed deep regret that they had engineered Facebook in such a way that it was ripping the fabric of society apart and making people unhappy? He said people were becoming addicted to these little dopamine hits that they get when they receive a like on Facebook. Now, when I'm on Facebook, the primary thing isn't dopamine, it's the opposite of dopamine. It's little disappointment hits that I get when I see how like idiotic most people's posts are. And I think what's happening is that the ads on Facebook are starting to converge with people's posts. So, for example, you might get a Blue Apron ad with like a photo of a meal right next to some idiot's idea of an interesting post being the food that they're about to consume. I'd like to see some realness on Facebook. I'd like to see someone post something like, so grateful that I finally discovered the rasping quality of my husband's constant self-aggrandizement. I don't think that's going to happen. Ask yourself this question before posting. Would someone Google what I'm about to post? Now, I have friends who have really nice dogs, yet they post photo after photo of their dog. Now, I know their dog is their little fur baby, but to me it's just a member of the canine species that my friend happens to own, and I wouldn't Google 1,000 photos of a random dog or even 1,000 photos of my friend's dog. I just wouldn't do that. I unfollow the hell out of people on Facebook. If you humble brag, I unfollow. Too many photos of your kids, I unfollow. If you do those little new posts that are just text on a colored background that are things like, just woke up, where's my donut? Unfollow. The problem is that these weak social ties on Facebook are crowding out strong social ties. And if you think we can have both, you don't understand time management, and you haven't seen how long people are on the platform of Facebook and other social media. It's a lot of time. The happiest people in the world are the Amish because they have extremely strong social ties. So when Pastor Brown comes knocking at the door, you're going to be doing a barn raising. There's no way to unfollow that. People sometimes have too high of expectations of relationships, and they can also sometimes inhibit their partner in a way that makes it difficult to get the relationship to be closer. One of the expectations is that just by virtue of being in a relationship, you're going to be raised up to a higher level, when it just means that you have someone to spend Friday night with. No, you have to raise yourself up, encourage your partner to raise themselves up, they raise themselves up, they encourage you, eventually you get there. Now, a way that people might inhibit their partner, let's say that you want to be part of a power couple. You want to have money and travel and stuff, and this is not me, but you have a partner who's struggling with their job, and I'm proud of using these non-gender pronouns, so they are struggling with their job. You're probably projecting this kind of weird force field onto them where they're inhibited about talking about their dissatisfaction because it's going to displease you and they might be rejected. So what you should do is you should praise the other person for things unrelated to their job until they're comfortable enough where they can share with you. Now, inhibition like this about sex, don't get me started. This can be very prevalent. People are much freakier than they let on to their partners, sometimes for decades. And this should be one of the 5 regrets of the dying, right after, by that hospice woman did that. Right after I worked too much, it should be, I never told Marge that I wanted to wear that clown suit. The person who wants sex more is going to be inhibited because they feel like they're just sort of not getting enough just regular sex, so they're not going to be like throwing a bunch of kinks out. What they might do is they might try to, accidentally, like, get a little freaky in ways where if they're caught, they would just say, well, I slipped up, that was an accident, or I was too drunk, or whatever. Again, nothing to do with me. I'm celibate, I'm asexual. Anyway, what should you do? What should you do about this? There's a book called Crucial Conversations. You should have a crucial conversation with your partner. You should say, honey, I'm kind of a dick, and I want to be part of a power couple, so what I want you to do is stay in your miserable, shitty job and make money, so I'm happy. And that will end your relationship, but it will make it much easier for that partner of yours to picture you in the clown suit.
Hey, let me out of those docks! Let me out of the docks! I don't want to be in here anymore! Let me out of here!
Oh, look who we have here. It's the 45th President of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump. How are you, sir?
I'm great, just like America.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. I was surprised to see you in the box here with President Obama.
That's former President Obama.
Well, as an honorific, we still call him President,
Whatever.
Okay, well, in any case, you two seem so different. It was good to see you both getting along.
Don't kid yourself. We are 2 sides of the same coin. He's a centrist. He plays both sides against the middle. I'm an extremist. I play one side against the other, and then the other side against the one.
Okay. I guess that makes sense in a way.
But I don't trust that guy. He never insults anybody. I insult everybody, on both sides, from little Marco Rubio to Pocahontas.
Yes, I think I've seen you do that.
Yeah, well, that guy, you ever see him read on a teleprompter? He's just like, I say what I feel, and I'm always shooting myself in the foot. That's why people trust me, because I say things that aren't self-serving, just like normal people do, all the time.
I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I guess normal people do sometimes say things that shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, and I insult everybody, so everybody hates me, and when they're busy hating on me, then I do my thing.
You do like what?
Well, I closed 2 national parks the other day when nobody was looking.
Well, you did indeed. But don't you get tired of people hating on you? Isn't that kind of hard?
No, I love it. I'm manipulating them to hate me.
But I've heard that you have kind of a thin skin. That's been reported.
I just make people believe that. I just keep all those plates in the air.
Well, okay, if you don't mind being insulted. I did feel that when you announced your candidacy, everyone laughed, and it was very unkind and unfair.
Don't care. I like it.
So you really don't mind the rough and tumble of politics and insults?
No, I don't. And you know what? You're a gawky, goofy-looking, pale, blonde, weird-looking dude.
Well, Mr. President, given what you just said, I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Well, don't let it go to your big watermelon head. Well, I certainly won't, Mr. President.
How many times have you seen this in, say, a made-for-TV movie where there's a parent dying prematurely and their kid will come to the deathbed and there'll be this deathbed advice? Timmy, you could be anything you want to be. You could be a garbage man. You just be the best garbage man out there. That's all I want. Whatever you want, just be the best. Now, this is terrible advice. First of all, being a garbage man is one of the hardest jobs. My sister's spouses, they all have like major back problems to the point where they need to like lie on the ground with their feet up against the wall and a tennis ball under the small of their back. Myself, I've thrown out my back just walking up the stairs. Now these sanitation workers, they're hauling these sodden bedbug mattresses up into their truck like all day long in any kind of weather. I think them along with dentists should be on our currency because those are the hardest jobs. And the other thing is, there's one best garbage man sanitation worker out there. Maybe in China, maybe in India, maybe Uzbekistan, who knows? Are the rest of them like losers? Is that how? I don't even like it where they go, be the best that you can be. Like, what if this Timmy wants to kind of right-size the garbage man thing? Like, yeah, it's pretty good, you know, pays the bills, gets my kid new sneakers, gives me time off. The ultimate thing to say on your deathbed is to do something like this. Timmy, I'm about to go. Come close. I have something to tell you. Come closer. Closer. Tag, you're it.
What is love?